welcome back to another Freedom Friday episode. I am Gabe Erickson, the CEO of Warrior Transition Outdoors. And as we've stated every week, this conversation is a chance to explore an aspect of life, an aspect of what we believe, what we've been conditioned to believe or understand, something hopefully will be said in every single week's episode that will lead to just a little bit more freedom or a whole lot more freedom, whatever it is for you. It might be a weight off your shoulders to say, oh my gosh, that thing I just learned, I didn't realize I was alone, or I was not alone with that, or I didn't realize that that was really what was going on. And we want freedom to be something that we're embracing constantly, going from one degree of freedom to the next, to the next, to the next. And even in my own personal life, I've gone from, being this free when I finally figured a lot of stuff out, but I go deeper and deeper into that as I explore, what do I have going on here? Just how deep does some of the stuff go that I've been embracing and conditioned to believe and things like that. And so, WTO really cares about that. We want that for our veterans. We want that for their spouses, for their kids. This impressionable generation coming up right now, whether they're young toddlers or teens, there's a lot of messaging and things out there about who are veterans and what is a spouse, and all of these things, and how how broken do you have to be to ride this ride and things like that. And so we want everyone finding freedom, and even civilians watching this. As a civilian myself, brother to a soon-to-be veteran, he's still active duty. We want civilians to understand some of these things and to break down these barriers that keep us from engaging in a very natural human way with this population. And so we'll start off. I'll tell you a little bit about my personal journey here because, I think I'm kind of the microcosm, and my brother and I's relationship as co-founders of this nonprofit, we are a microcosm of this bigger thing. And WTO does a lot of work around like lifelong family advocacy and outdoor adventures, obviously, holistic health. Those are the three major buckets of what we do. And within those things, there's a holistic picture that goes way deeper. But really the issue, the bridge that was created between us is what we're trying to create in society. And so my brother went off into the military at a young age. He was 17. He went into the National Guard. I remember he was gone for an entire summer for basic training. And, from that age, he's 18 months older than I am. And so he and I grew up and we were just always close. That's how it was. He was my older brother. He defended me when people picked on me and things. And I remember him being gone for that summer and it just felt normal. Like, yeah, that's what he's going to do with his life. And he came back and had his senior year, and we were in football together and sports and all the things. And then he went away again. And I honestly didn't realize what was happening at that point. But looking back, that's when our relationship started to separate. That's when we started to grow apart. And for me, I got to go into college and do all the things and pursue my goals and my dreams and my vision for my life. And I know my brother chose the military for good reason. And a lot of that had to do with what he saw, with 9/11 and the news reports. And I remember his story. He'll tell you he was eating Funyuns and drinking Dr. Pepper when he saw that. And he thought, what am I doing with my life? And so he decided to step up and be a part of the solution there. So he went into the military, and I don't even know. I'd be curious to know now, and this is a question I've never asked him, but prior to the military, like what are some of the goals and dreams he had for his life? What are some of the things he knowingly put on the back burner as he went into this? Or was it strictly like, I don't have anything on the back burner. I want to go serve. And so what happened was he went into the military, I went into my civilian world. And the more I got invested into my goals and my dreams, and the less I understood what he was going through, I just took for granted. I took for granted the relationship that we had as kids. I took for granted that he was my best friend. And so much so that years later, I remember I was going through some relationship stuff, and I remember telling him like, "Dude, you're not my best friend anymore." And I like blamed him for that. I blamed our circumstance for that, but I didn't even realize that I really didn't put in the work. I didn't put in the effort. And I in hindsight, I had a lot of fear and misconception about his military experience that I didn't even know what to ask. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what he was going through. When he was in Afghanistan, I so took for granted the fact that we were tight as brothers that I didn't even send him a letter. I didn't send him a, "Hey, how you doing? I'm thinking about you." Um, it's pretty messed up, and that was a decade and a half ago, right? But still, like that's some of the stuff that me being close to him and then that separation. And when he got into recruiting instead of the infantry, now he was around. And I realized like we're not nearly as close as I thought. And that I had let that work slip and the emotional labor that one has to put into a relationship to keep it growing and going. I had missed out on that. And yet I remember I was running my own business at the time. And so as an entrepreneur, I was very strapped on cash. And I remember him just like giving me the shirt off his back without me even asking. He just like Venmoed me or whatever it was at the time, like a couple $100 and said, "Hey man, go buy yourself some groceries." And that was one of the first like moments where I started to realize this guy is like special. Like he has a really great heart. And I didn't even know that as a kid because as much as he defended me from bullies, he then took it upon himself to pick on me and all of those things, as brothers do. So here he is growing into this person that I have no idea who he is. And I'm realizing I don't know who this guy is. And so I started to dig into that and I started to, ask some questions about, different things. And we would be on a road trip and he'd be like, "Oh man, like I remember we were outside of Chicago," and he would tell me like, that's this part of the interstate. I remember it clearly. I was like, "Why? I mean, what does that have to do with your military service? Nothing." He said, but he was driving once and there was a car accident and he was one of the first on the scene. And so he had to like park his car and like run over and help pull a guy out of the car before it like got worse. The situation got worse. And then he like ripped his shirt off and like covered some of the bleeding and things. And I'm like, my brother did what? Like what? That's a crazy story. And that's not even tied to his military, but that's tied to his heart as a person. And then I come to find out like this guy's got a Bronze Star. And I've seen military movies that end and it's like, this sergeant and that staff sergeant and this, soldier and all of the things like these people had Bronze Stars and from their duty service in their in the World War II or whatever. And like that's like this heroic thing. And we started growing closer together as I paid more attention to his life. And then any opportunity we had to go outdoors or hunt or things, I would ride in the back seat of a truck, let's say, while he and another veteran were up front talking. And I remember it just being like listening to these stories, like, what have you guys? I don't know anything about your life. Like, this is crazy. And even I remember we were out for a bachelor party one night for a family member of ours, and there was a guy there wearing a military shirt, and he was openly talking about some pretty traumatic stuff that he was going through in that moment and some of the mental health stuff he was struggling with. And my brother just told him, like, "Hey man, like soldier to soldier, you need to go home." And the guy listened, and just there's all these little moments that contributed to me understanding who is this person. So fast forward into 2022, we've been talking about doing this nonprofit together for over a decade. But with my experience running a nonprofit, I went into this other veterans nonprofit here in Billings, Montana. I was there for 3 weeks. I had to quit. The stuff I was seeing was repulsive. The way they spent their money, the way they treated their veterans, and to the naked eye, you'd be like, "Oh no, there's nothing wrong with that," unless you truly see behind the veil as to what is going on there. It was pretty disgusting, and still because I'm not a veteran, I asked my brother, like, all every day I'd come home and be like, hey man, what are your thoughts on this? Am I doing this right? Does this sound good? Is this messaging correct? Is this service correct? And he was kind of like my consultant on that. So when I quit, it felt like he was quitting with me because he was heavily invested in helping me make that the best program possible. And so we really looked at each other and said, hey, we need to start this Warrior Transition Outdoors. We need to start this now. We cannot wait until you retire in 2025. We have to do it now. And so that is why we started WTO in November 2022. And even still, I'm going to tell you and just be really honest here that for the first 2, 3 months as a civilian, it took me a while to realize that I had a place in the conversation. I was leaning very, very heavily on him to feel like I had a place here. And so what that does when I say there's a microcosm of the bigger picture, if I'm experiencing that journey that way, if that's how it's going for me, I know that is not even how it's going. I'm in an amplified area. So that journey for me has been taking this long and taking this much exposure, and I'm surrounded by it. And it took me months to have confidence that I have a place here. And it really comes down to me just as a civilian treating these, veterans or mil spouses or whoever like humans, because that's who they are. And when I got over that, you're a human being. I insist on treating you that way first. I love that you're a veteran. Thank you for your service. But more than that, you're a human and I'm here for you just the same as I would be for any other human. And I'm not going to let your veteran status cloud my judgment of you. And I'm not going to let what you've been through cause me to treat you differently, because I want you to know that I see you. When I got to that place, everything changed for me as the CEO and founder of this nonprofit. To the degree that I can host a podcast and talk about this stuff very confidently, and I could talk about veterans issues very confidently, and I can meet any veteran. You give me any veteran that is open to talking, and we will connect and we will bond, and they will know that I am there for them just the same as, even though I didn't serve, I have their back. And that camaraderie is something I'm going to give to them right off the bat, unconditionally, infinitely. There's nothing they could do to lose that camaraderie with me. And I know that that's what they lose when they leave the military. And so I want to be a source of that. And so but I didn't get to this place overnight. I had to go through the valley of questioning and fear and doubt and all of this stuff to understand, like, who am I in this conversation? And it's been very encouraging because as Gavin and I have shared about WTO to various groups around town and on video chats on LinkedIn and things, more and more people, civilians, are starting to ask the question, how do I get beyond thank you for your service? What do I say when a veteran says this, this, and this? And they're really curious and they're leaning in. And that gives me a ton of hope, because that's what I was doing. I was leaning in. Before I leaned in, I was saying thank you for your service all day long. But man, looking back, that meant jack shit. That meant nothing. It was the most platitude of platitudes. It was the most shallow thing. And I know, and I'm speaking from experience, and this is not condemnation or judgment, but I know that people do that. I know that a lot of what is said actually doesn't mean or accomplish anything. And that's because I've been there. So what I want to see is a movement of civilians that embrace the humanity of this community and embrace that over their service, just the same way I described to you. Like, I refuse to treat you differently. I refuse to be scared when you tell me and you come to me and you say, hey, I'm a veteran and yeah, I'm working through some mental health stuff. If a veteran says that to me, I'm not scared. But I've sat in training through like suicide prevention training and things where they make you scared to deal with veterans because what if? But I was just talking with a veteran today that said, that's the point. The point we keep pushing, that we want them to be able to share all of what they're going through. Even if that is suicidal ideation, for example, they should be able to say that to us. That's them reaching out. But if we're scared, they're going to feel that and it's going to affect the outcome. So, really getting to this place of like, hey, as a human being, that's going to change how I treat you if I see you that way. And that's where like this broken veteran thing goes, this just goes away because there's no such thing as a broken veteran when you have that mindset. It's a human being in front of you and you believe in their future and you believe in their hope and you see a future that is full of victory for them relationally, in their mental health, in their physical health, in their careers, whatever it might be. That is where the victorious thing comes from. It's not a monolithic narrative that we're trying to push that stop saying broken things and just be happy and positive. It is nothing like that. This is a deeply intuitive, universal truth that we're trying to tap into for people here to hopefully take the journey I had to go on from childhood until my 30s and squish that into a much shorter time frame for people so that it doesn't take 3 decades to figure it out the way it did for me. And so, as a microcosm of the issue, hey, I didn't realize that I have a role to play in building a bridge from this military to civilian world. And now that I've built that bridge, I have great relationships with my brother, with all the veterans in our program, with veterans outside of our program. I have solid, loving relationships with spouses, military spouses, with kids and Gold Star spouses, you name it. Like, but that comes from being willing to build a bridge, being willing to, on my end, put in work, not just expect the veteran to do all the work to conform to my world, because that's what I had been doing. I'd been expecting my brother to come to me the way I thought he was as my brother, as a, as an active duty guy, I not knowing what I didn't know, but I was expecting him to come to me on my terms. But that's just not how we treat people ever. That's not a, a sustainable way to be in relationship with anyone. And so, veteran or not, that is just not the right way to go about it. So that I hope that gives some like illumination on just my specific journey with this. And if you're a civilian watching this, I want you to absorb what I am saying. That it's okay to be on that journey. And as long as you're on it. And it's okay to say to a veteran, listen, man, I don't know what you went through, but would you tell me? What are you willing to tell me? Or hey, before you tell me anything, I just want you to know, like, I truly have your back. I'm not scared to be around you. I'm not scared to be your friend. I want you to know I'm here for you. And sure, I'm grateful for your service, but not letting that be the only thing we say. Thank you for your service. Goodbye. Unless if that's the only moment you have and you're in the grocery store and you're passing someone and that's it, sure. I'm not here to take that off the table. I'm just saying let's go deeper. Let's go deeper into the humanity that we all share so that we as civilians can build the bridge. It is necessary. It is a necessary component for our veterans to feel at home in the world that we live in. They left everything behind, even if they never were deployed. And so if you're a veteran watching this, you're like, well, I was never deployed. We don't care. You signed up and left all of your goals and personal dreams and personal ideas behind for the sake of that's what that signature did. Right? And so whatever that meant for your life, eventually when you leave service, you are entering a totally different world. Whether you understand that or not, you will understand it because every veteran, 99% of the time, veterans tell me I lost my identity, I lost my teammates, and I lost my purpose. And in the civilian world, it is hard to find teammates. It is hard to find people who genuinely will have your back no matter what, the same way you had that in the military. That's almost impossible to find. Childhood friends have that like backing and things. But when you go into this new world and you're meeting new people, it is so hard. And I'm just going to say it because civilians, if they're not on the journey that I've been on and others, if they're pre-journey, if they're in this normal world of what it means to be a civilian and they're expecting you to come to them on their terms, that civilian world doesn't have the empathy or understanding. And therefore, it creates a lot of discomfort. And it tends to be selfish and not selfless. And it tends to be shallow and not deep. And it tends to be conditional love. Yeah, man, I'll say thank you for your service all day long. I'll be kind to you, but the moment I realize that you got some stuff going on, I can't be associated with you, or I'm scared, or whatever the case. And that's conditional love. So yeah, we don't stratify that service that someone was deployed or not. If you signed up, you gave up everything for us. And we as civilians can't expect them to come all the way across. We've got to build the bridge from our shore. And that just starts with asking questions, being genuinely curious about them as humans, not even simply about their service. Hey, you're a veteran. Where are you from? I'm from Alabama. Cool. What brought you to this state? Oh, it was my service. Oh, cool. Are you still in? No, I'm out. Did you retire? No, actually, I was only in for 6 years. Interesting. What did you do for those 6 years? Do you have kids? Do you have a family? How is it going? Are you liking this place? Those are the things you would do if you just met anyone on the street and genuinely cared to connect with them. So don't look at that veteran thing and make it all about that for them. And I'm just sharing from personal success stories as to what works, what has led to freedom for me, for the veterans in our program, through interacting with one another and our staff and the civilians on our staff, because all of the people in WTO get this at this level. They understand it. And so there's a movement of civilians that are more and more within WTO and outside of WTO that are stepping in and saying, you know what, enough is enough. There's no such thing as a broken veteran. I even had a guy say the other day who is a veteran, there's no such thing as a veteran. I'll let that sit in. There's no such thing as a veteran. There are veterans experiencing their own life journey. But the moment we say, oh, there's a veteran, this is what a veteran is, this is what they're going through. I get the question all the time, well, what should we do? What's good for a veteran? I don't know. What's good for you? Might not be what's good for me. Might not be what's good for the guy who looks just like me, but is totally different than me right next to me. Like, we can't blanket statement these things. We have got to look at the individuality of people and to respect their autonomy and their soul's beauty and to love them for who they are. So that's my Freedom Friday for today. And I hope that that unlocks something in you, or that at least you felt the key on your fingertips to go unlock it. There you go. If you have questions, if you have comments, if you have, we're here to develop this conversation, not just create this one-sided conversation through video that leaves you wondering. Comment, send us an email, reach out, and let's have this conversation. My brother and I have video calls and in-person meetings all week long. And a lot of it has nothing to do with trying to get anything from anyone, because that's not why we're here. We're not here as a nonprofit like co-founders. We're not here to try to get things from people. That's what other nonprofits do. They need money, they need support, they need volunteers. If and when it's relevant and I have a relationship with someone, I might ask for those things. But the first and foremost thing is that I want to know you as a human. I want to help you understand what what this victorious and victory movement is. It is a movement. I'm telling you right now, if you are not catching on to this movement, you are on the wrong side of history, because over time, in 2, 3, 5 years, however long, it might not be long, it might be a little longer than we think. This is going to be global. You're going to be around the globe and you're going to hear people say, hey, because there's veterans all over the world, by the way. It's not just America, right? And you're going to hear people say, like, hey, you're not talking about veterans in a victorious way. Like, you need to adopt this narrative and then this understanding of people. You're going to hear that everywhere. I promise you. So let's get on board. Let's start the conversations. Let's get these civilians together to understand we have work to do here. And it's relational work. It's not resource work. It's not money work. It's relational work that we need to put in to show up and to be there truly, unconditionally. I've been in too many settings as a civilian to know that there's a lot of conditions on how people will love you and whether they will be there for you. You make one mistake, you believe a certain thing. Oh, I believe in aliens. Oh my gosh, can't be associated with you because you believe in that. I have personal things that I've shared on my personal social media, even recently, because people have been trying to weaponize who I am against me. And I'm saying, as the CEO, as a person, as a father, as all of these things, this is who I am. These are the things I believe in. How does that affect you? It has nothing to do with you. There's no reason we shouldn't still be able to align to do this kind of work for these people. But if we don't align, I need to know that too, because I'm not trying to force myself to align. I'm not trying to force WTO to align with people that are not catching on to this stuff, because it's only going to damage WTO, the veterans that we're serving, the families that we're serving. It's only going to damage the culture around the veteran community. So we're going to stand our ground and we're going to be firm on this, that either you're on this victory movement or you're not. And as far as an organization goes, we're aligning with people that get it. And that has created such powerful momentum in the lives of our veterans because they feel seen and loved. And that is what is mattering to them more than the number of services that you could provide. So enjoy your day, enjoy your weekend, and we will see you next week. I've got a great guest next week. I cannot wait to have this guy on, and we'll look forward to talking to you more then. Have a great day.